Jimmy popping all that bullshit. I be seeing you, Jimmy, talking about we Gucci boo boo. He in the Gucci store. Talking about we Gucci boo boo. The Black King was going up. Jimmy like, Marita Moneda.
Ever, he's never been talked about like this ever in his life.
Now, has Nas
you did the last time he was in some this was people were comparing when him and Jay was beating on him.
Say that.
If I told you I was in the Roc Nation office, how would you feel about that? Huh? You think I was lying? That's clear enough for you? Talk to me. Let me know your sentiments. You heard?
Well, 50 Cent. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like Jim.
Nah, I don't want to do nothing with that sucker. You heard? Leave him out of the conversation.
50 Cent just went off on Jim Jones for taking shots at Nas, and he brought receipts. He dropped some rare footage that shows Jim straight up flipping on Jay-Z. 1 minute, he was calling Jay soft. The next, he was all smiles trying to land a Roc Nation deal. Now let's be real. 50's never been cool with Jim or Jay, but he's always shown love to Nas. So when Jim recently started talking wild, acting like he's better than Nas and even saying he made Nas go viral again, 50 wasn't having that. But this isn't just about Nas. What 50 exposed goes way deeper. It's about Jim's history of switching sides and playing both ends. For years, Jim's been bouncing between beef and begging, hate and handshake, especially when it comes to Jay-Z. Get this, Jim spent years throwing jabs at Jay. He even slapped one of Jay's top execs. But when the money got tight, Jim came crawling back, calling Jay a hero and begging for a shot at Roc Nation. That's the part that's got 50 calling him out. He's painting Jim as a dude with no loyalty, no backbone, and no respect for the game. And the craziest part? Jim always talks like he's for the culture, like he's holding it down for the streets. But 50's saying that's all smoke and mirrors. This whole Nas drama opened the door for 50 to air Jim out, pulling up all his messy moves and shady flips. Everybody knows 50 Cent doesn't bite his tongue. And now, he's blasting Jim Jones again, calling him Jay-Z's lapdog after Jim came for Nas. This whole mess just lit up Jim's record of constant flip-flopping like never before. So here's the rundown. Jim wilded out, claiming he's better than Nas and even clashed with Shannon Sharpe, saying he could run circles around Nas in the booth. Fading around Nas right now rapping, "Everybody knows that," Jim said. And that alone had the rap world side-eyeing him. Rappers from all over checked Jim hard for coming at a legend like Nas. But instead of backing down, Jim turned it up, bragging that he made Nas relevant again, like he was the one who brought Nas back since that old beef with Jay-Z. Big mistake, because once Jim mentioned Jay, that's when 50 Cent swooped in and reminded everybody how Jim used to diss Jay like it was his full-time job, only to later show up grinning at Roc Nation headquarters like a fanboy. And 50 made sure we didn't miss the point. He dropped an old clip of Jim looking all hyped inside Roc Nation, and in the caption, 50 threw shade with one of his signature jabs. "Someone asked me if I have more enemies than friends. I thought about it and said, yes, poor me, I'm suffering from success. LOL.
I want you to Nas, and I don't care what nobody say. I know I made a little boo-boo when we talk about the sales and all this type. I don't feel like getting into that rhetoric about where I started and where he started.
You said that.
But listen, Nas was nice when I was in high school. When I was in 10th grade, Nas came out. Nas was dope. We appreciated him. He had a little bit run. But Nas always came up second to Jay and DMX and all these other people.
But lyrically, I'm gonna keep it a stack with you.
Yeah,
y'all
but look how
ain't
you
with
dress.
Nas.
Look how you dress. You don't even be in the same places I be in. And the
But
things
I-
that we listen to.
I can be in the church house. You can't ever Nas lyrics. I don't know who told you that. Now look, I know you on that good stuff, but you're not seeing Nas.
Bro,
You're
it's a
not
bunch
seeing
of
Nas, bro.
You got a bunch
Let's
of
be
40
real.
and 50 You got a bunch of 40 and 50-year-olds in their panties because I said I'm better than Nas.
It don't matter.
Look at you.
Hey,
I will
we
run
not
circles
denying
around
that.
Nas rapping right. I will run circles around Nas rapping right now. Right now, I will run.
Put his
I will
microphone
run.
up. Let me take my mic off.
I will run Saturn around Nas right now.
Now, some might say 50's just trolling, but if you know the backstory, this one hit deep. Jim spent 13 years taking shots at Jay-Z, dropping diss tracks, talking reckless in interviews, and even getting into real-life street drama. Then out of nowhere, Jim switched up, praising Jay. begging for a seat at the table he once tried to flip. That's exactly what 50's pointing out. Jim's recent diss at Nas just opened the floodgates for all that shady history to resurface. But wait, how did Jim go from swinging at Jay to trying to join his team like nothing ever happened? Let's break that part down next. Let's take it all the way back. Before Jim Jones was begging Jay-Z for a deal, things were already rocky. It started in 2002, when Cameron and Jim were brought into Rockefeller by Dame Dash. Jim later claimed Cam was promised a vice president role at the label, but Jay-Z never made that announcement official. Cam told the source back then, "I don't even know if I'ma take the role yet. Me and Dame still talking about it, but I mean, I can have it. It's mine." Meanwhile, Jay played it cool and told the source, "That's not taking effect as of yet."
Who's Jim Jones? Like, he's not on anyone's top 10 list. He's not like no one's top 10 list, maybe not even his family.
When Jay did the remix, it was the biggest alley-oop he could do for me. I understood a lot about music, and at that time, people were looking at the wrong way, and I was looking at the right way.
I think the talk is a little premature. So right from the jump, tension was bubbling. Then came the first big moment. Jay jumped on a remix of Cam and Jules Santana's hit Oh Boy and used his verse to throw shots at Nas. But Cam and Jim, they weren't having it. They refused to release the remix and straight up erased Jay's verse. Cam later said he wasn't gonna let Jay hijack their track to handle his own beef. And that right there set the tone for years of static. Jim and Cam felt like Jay didn't respect them. That's when the sneak disses really kicked in. Jim started calling Jay out in interviews and on the radio, painting him as this out-of-touch, buttoned-up businessman who forgot where he came from. Jim pushed the image hard. Dipset was flashy, raw, and loud. Jay? He was corporate, smooth, and too polished. Jim leaned into the idea that the streets had left Jay behind and crowned Dipset as the real voice of the hood. So now, seeing Jim years later cheesing at Roc Nation, it hits different when you remember where it all began, with power plays, erased verses, and low-key beef that never fully cooled off.
If I told you I was in the Roc Nation office, how would you feel about that? Huh? You think I was lying? That's clear enough for you?
At first, Jay-Z stayed quiet. No direct shots, just silence. But everyone could feel the tension brewing inside Rockefeller. Things really popped off in 2006 when Jim Jones dropped We Fly High and Ballin' became a full-blown cultural anthem. Jim finally had his own solo hit, and that's when Jay-Z decided to make his move. He jumped on the same beat and dropped Brooklyn High. But don't get it twisted, this wasn't no salute. It was a straight-up diss. Jay came for Jim's whole style, mocking his flow, his bars, and even clowning his famous ad-libs. It was cold, calculated, and disrespectful. But Jim didn't back down. He fired right back with the beef mix, flipping the beat again and going directly at Jay, calling him old, out of touch, and washed up. And then, things went left. This wasn't just music beef anymore. It got real. In 2008, Jim was caught on surveillance putting hands on somebody in a Louis Vuitton store.
I'm on there, bro. All right, I'm middleman. I'm on there, Jones. Capo. Burning the streets up. Y'all know what it is, man. Purple Haze coming out. My dude Cam album coming out. Joel Santana, he's slated for September. You know what they call me, Geronimo Prada. Dipset, the new Black Panther. No problems. I promise you.
That somebody turned out to be Lenny Santiago, Jay-Z's longtime A&R and close friend. Jim got arrested and ended up pleading guilty to misdemeanor assault. Jay still didn't say much publicly, but behind the scenes, the message was loud and clear. This wasn't about records anymore. It was personal now. Months later, Jay did an interview with XXL, talking about the state of rap, and he took a slick shot at Jim's music. He didn't hold back when he said songs like Jim's Na 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 were dragging down the culture. Jay said, "I mean like Jim Jones, for example, and I don't mean this because we never see eye to eye. He made Na 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 Na. What's the difference between that and Soulja Boy's Smiley Face? It could have been called Smiley Face." AZ might not have been in the streets like that, but he knew how to play the game smart, and he clowned Jim without ever getting his hands dirty. From 2010 to 2015, the beef between them cooled into a quiet Cold War. No more diss tracks, no more drama in the streets, just heavy tension hanging in the air. Then, in 2015, Dipset tried to spark it all back up. They dropped a freestyle over Diddy's Victory beat, and both Cam and Jim threw slick shots at Jay and Roc Nation. They mocked the whole brunch scene, took jabs at the label, and even mentioned Beyonce in the mix. Cam rapped, "Having money don't make you a real one. You stepped on the court? You gonna play my game? Just take Shawty's advice and say my name." Yeah, they were definitely trying to bait Jay into firing back. But by then, Jay-Z had leveled up way past the beef. He was married to Beyonce, collecting fine art, running Tidal, and getting serious in the sports world. He was a billionaire, moving like a boss. And he wasn't checking for Dipset still hollering from the sidelines. In fact, a clip later resurfaced of Jay comparing himself to Michael Jordan, and straight up clowning Jim, saying he's like the 8th guy on the bench yelling at the MVP. That stung. Jay barely said Jim's name, but the message landed hard. That's when reality hit Jim. All the years of dissing Jay were just making him look desperate. So he did what 50 Cent is still roasting him for. He switched all the way up and started begging Jay for a deal. And guess what? In February 2017, after 13 years of non-stop beef, Jim finally got what he wanted. He officially signed with Roc Nation. From calling Jay soft to signing under his brand, that's the move 50's now dragging him for with no mercy. And Jim didn't just sign the deal and chill. Nah, he went all out with it. Suddenly, he was bragging about getting invited to the Roc Nation brunch, the same exact event he used to clown. Now he was all suited up, cheesing for the cameras, acting like he'd been Team Jay since day one. He started praising Jay publicly, calling him a role model, trying hard to prove he was loyal now. But this is the same man who once called Jay soft, accused him of turning his back on the streets, and even laid hands on Jay's close friend. Now, he was flipping the script like all that history didn't exist. And guess what Jay-Z did? Absolutely nothing. No welcome post, no public celebration, not even a real shout-out. The only proof this deal ever went down is one stiff photo of Jay and Jim. And even in that pic, Jay looks like he'd rather be anywhere else. Jim might have finally gotten a seat at the table, but Jay made one thing crystal clear. They were never equals. Jim was just another name in the Roc Nation folder, nothing more. And that's what makes it so wild. Because for over a decade, Jim built his whole image by saying he wasn't Jay-Z. Dipset was supposed to be the anti-Roc, the street answer to Jay's corporate empire. But in the end, the money won. The whole image Jim built, the street general, the rebel, it collapsed the minute he needed a deal. Jay didn't have to clap back or drop a diss. He just waited. And when Jim finally bent the knee, Jay signed him and kept it pushing. That's exactly what 50 Cent's been clowning. Jim talked wild for years and still ended up begging for a seat at the same table he spent his career trashing. This all might have been forgotten if Jim hadn't disrespected Nas. But once he crossed that line, 50 pulled up with receipts, dragging every flip-flop and every phony move right into the spotlight. So now the question is, can Jim bounce back from this? Or is this where his story ends? Let us know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap that bell so you never miss the drama. This is Juice Alert, and we'll see you in the next one.